Purple pain.
Run. Oh no!
We've got prints and we've got awesome shirts, along with pillows, beach towels, and more. All available at the Underdog store, so don't wait any longer to treat yourself. Get yourself some awesome merch today. Every purchase helps support the channel and you look awesome while doing it. How's it going, everyone? My name is True Underdog and Sindel is finally free. Free to zone, free to rush down, free to combo whatever you want, all thanks to the custom variations. And as a result, she is much stronger for it because she basically has no bad matchups anymore. So without any further ado, let's explain why. For starters, we have Low Star Screamer, otherwise known as one of the best projectiles in the entire game. For starters, it's a low mix-up, and that does give you some 50-50s. That string ends in an overhead, well, now it's a low. And even though it is unsafe on block, the amplified version is -10 with a lot of pushback, so a lot of characters cannot punish you from this distance. And even if they can, that doesn't mean the player knows how to punish you. So put simply, -10 from this far away is safe most of the time. But of course, hitting low is not what makes this projectile great. What makes it fantastic is that Sindel herself gets very low to the ground, and this means she can duck a bunch of different projectiles. So for example, right now Johnny Cage is backdashing and throwing fireballs, and as you can see, I can duck on reaction to every single one and I'll win the trade every single time. So not only are you avoiding the opponent's projectiles, but you are punishing them as a result. Or in other words, Sindel can outzone a majority of the roster. If you want to play keep away, you're gonna have to be a very specific character. And the amplified version is great from a distance as well because Sindel will stay down for much longer, so in case you duck a bit too early, there's nothing to worry about. She'll stay down for a bit longer and still avoid the projectile. It's honestly just fantastic. And in case you didn't know, the amplified version is more of a beam and not a projectile, or in other words, it stays on screen for a good amount of time, which can make it a great anti-air if the opponent jumps from farther away. And last but not least, it leaves the opponent standing and you're at plus frames on hit, which means you can jail into a lot of your attacks. So in the corner, this projectile is especially useful. Honestly, the only characters who can beat this projectile are ones that can hover in the air, so characters like Cetrion and Jade, they can give this projectile a bit of a tough time, but that's not a big deal because Sindel has a second weapon, and that is her Banshee Dash. I was watching tournaments and nearly every single Sindel player was rocking this move, so that tells you how good it is. For starters, this projectile is very tall. It commands a very large portion of the screen, so if you're anywhere in the air, it's going to catch you, which means it's great for countering characters like Jade or Cetrion who can stay in the air while throwing projectiles. Because even if Sindel does get hit, the Banshee keeps on going. And this attack goes pretty far. Make sure not to underestimate it. It might not go full screen, but it still travels a very good distance. And if you play this game even a little bit, then you know what makes this move phenomenal. If you amplify it, Sindel teleports to the opponent and can do a jump in on the way down. And since it only amplifies on hit, you can go for the amplify option every single time. If it lands, you get a full combo, but if it's blocked, no big deal, you're still completely safe. And once it does land, the combos are just crazy, and best of all, the opponent can't break away as long as you leave them standing. And that of course makes Sindel very strong right away. If you ask me, that's the new meta of Mortal Kombat 11. Any character that can take a breakaway off the table is very strong. As you can see, Sindel's getting almost 30% every time she lands this Banshee, so it's a very good projectile. And then if she wants to spend 2 bars, she's deleting 1/3 of your health bar, so pretty decent damage, and once again, you can't escape it. It's all guaranteed. And then just for fun, let's say she lands this crushing blow. It's very common. Well, now thanks to Banshee Dash, she's getting some really good unbreakable damage. Just look at that, almost 40%, and then if you're even closer, you can get more damage by charging the Scream a second time. Boom, check that out. Now we are getting 40%, and sure it costs 2 bars, but once again you can't escape it. So if you have less than 50% health and Sindel lands that crushing blow, you're in for it. I recommend you cross your fingers. But things get really terrifying once Sindel has access to Fatal Blow. If she touches you in pretty much any way with this Banshee, she's getting a guaranteed 50% or close to it. And don't get me wrong, she was already a damage monster, but what's scary is she can do combos like this and still have good zoning and counter zoning with her Starscream. And once again, breakaway is completely off the table. And I do believe she can get even more damage if she launches you, but these combos that I'm showing right now are unbreakable damage. It's all guaranteed. And they're honestly not that tough to do once you practice them for a bit. So as you can see, Banshee Dash is a very strong projectile. It's great for starting off combos and it dominates the air. And then if the opponent stays on the ground, that's just fine because you also have low Star Screamer. Put simply, Sindel is a monster even at a distance, and that's good news because I don't know if any of you played Sindel before, but every single opponent online just runs away from you constantly and it's super frustrating. I understand that's the matchup and you should run away from this character, but it's so frustrating to constantly chase the opponent down, especially if they have a teleport. It just never ends. But not anymore, baby, because we have the low Star Screamer and we have the Banshee Dash. And then if you're like me and you really enjoy combos and you just can't part with Haircut, it does take up 2 slots, but I still recommend keeping Star Screamer because once again, you can counter zone most characters on the roster and they can't just run away and throw stuff. Instead, they're going to want to come in and get close, and that's when you can do your 50-50s, you can start off your combos and then do Haircut and get some really good damage. So if you're like me and you love combos, then that's the custom variation I recommend. I have Haircut and I have low Star Screamer. But now back to the main variation I was talking about. To end things, we have Whip and Flip. Once again, when I watched tournament play, pretty much every player had this move on their variation. And I think there's a couple of good reasons why. Once again, it is a mix-up, which can be good at a casual level. You can end with an overhead or you can end with a low. And while both options can be reacted to offline and fuzzy guarded, I feel like online that's much tougher for a lot of players to do, especially if you put them on tilt. And in fact, you even have strings like this as well. The second hit is a low, not anymore, it's an overhead. So just one more mix-up that you have. You have low Star Screamer for a low mix-up, and then you have Whip and Flip for an overhead mix-up. Really good mix-up game up close. But even if your opponent does have perfect defense and this attack does not work as a mix-up on block, Whip and Flip is still one of the most damaging ways to end your combos, especially if you don't want to spend a meter. Otherwise, this is your best option. But honestly, you're much better off saving your meter for the Banshee Dash or even the Scream if you want that whiff punish crushing blow. So that's why Whip and Flip is such a great option for your custom variations. It's a damaging way to end combos, and it's also a great mix-up at the lower levels, and don't forget, it can go really far very quickly, so it's also great for whiff punishing or punishing projectiles. Seriously, I'm not joking, the range on this thing is nuts, and it travels a lot faster than you think. So just to put everything together, this is the variation that I saw most tournament players using. They had low Star Screamer, which was great for catching the opponent if they wanted to throw projectiles from far away. If the opponent was jumping a lot, they would do the air Banshee Dash, and if it hit, they could amplify and get a combo started. And of course, the combo itself is completely unescapable. All the damage is guaranteed. And then finally, you have Whip and Flip, which is a great meterless way to end combos for some decent damage, and it can also be good for counter zoning itself, and it's also a decent mix-up up close. So in my opinion, this variation is very strong, and that's why so many pro players are currently using it. Now in the comments section, I saw that several viewers wanted me to cover the other custom abilities as well, and unfortunately, the Bellowing Banshee is the only custom variation we haven't seen yet in Kombat League, because unfortunately, NetherRealm has banned the enhanced Regal Presence, and I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe there's some weird infinites or some weird glitches of some kind, but I really wish they would just fix that move because I want to see that in competitive play. It just seems like a lot of fun. But as far as Bellowing Banshee goes, it's an interesting move. It's kind of missing some things that make it viable at a high skill level, but at the casual level, I could see it being somewhat useful. So for starters, it hits overhead. That could be a decent mix-up. You do an overhead jump in, the opponent expects this low, but instead they get a double overhead. And then on top of that, the damage isn't half bad, so it can be a decent way to end combos in certain situations. But as you saw earlier, you can get way more damage than that, and you keep the opponent standing the whole time, so there's no reason to end combos with Bellowing Banshee. And even though it does have Sindel flying backwards, it's minus 24 on block, so pretty much everybody can dash forward and punish this thing on reaction to blocking it, and that's a shame. I feel like if it was safe, that would make it a lot more viable. However, unfortunately, that's not the case. It's very, very unsafe on block. And that's why, in my honest opinion, I don't recommend using this move in your custom variations. It does feel like a waste of a slot. Sindel has a bunch of very useful custom abilities, so this one's kind of a waste by comparison. And that's a shame, but it is what it is. But thankfully, the good news is Sindel is now much stronger as a character. In fact, I think she might be top tier, but only time will tell. So please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. How do you feel about Sindel? And then while you're down there, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. It really does help the channel out a ton. And then finish that combo by suplexing that subscribe button. That way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.